Hi, I'm Matt, this is Major, and welcome to Less Dependent Wisconsin. I showed you Melee in a video a little ways back, so I thought I'd introduce you to Major. He's an almost 14-year-old Italian Greyhound, and I originally got him when I was stationed in Fort Lewis, Washington. He's lived in Washington, Missouri, Hawaii, Wisconsin. This dog has put some miles on. He's a good boy. But anyways, today what we're going to talk about are compost piles, and I'll show you how to build them, what is the reason you'll use a compost pile, and talk about some of the things you should and should not do. So let's go get started. Why do you want a compost pile? Well, as you grow things in your garden, the things you grow are going to take nutrients out of the soil, and you need to constantly be adding the nutrients back into the soil so you get good things growing. Most people, what they do is buy fertilizer. Have you seen the price of fertilizer lately? Composting, it's basically free. You know, it's all stuff from your yard, from your house, that's all going to kind of break down. There's four basic things you need for a compost pile. You need greens, browns, water, and air. Okay, when I talk about greens, we're talking grass clippings, for example, household waste, things like you know, if you've cleaned a bunch of peppers or lettuce, you got lettuce stems, stuff like that can go in the compost pile. Other green things we'll add will be eggshells. Eggshells do take quite a bit of time to break down in a compost pile, but what'll happen is they'll get smaller and smaller over time, and then when you add it back to your soil, it provides calcium for your plants. What a lot of this is going to provide, the green stuff's really going to provide the nitrogen. The carbon is going to be in your brown things, and when we're talking brown things, we're talking cardboard, dry leaves, straw, wood chips, those kind of things. The brown materials will be adding the carbon into the compost pile. Okay. Water, you'll want to keep it moist, not overly wet, and that'll aid in the breakdown. And the fourth thing you need is air. Air. This is an aerobic process. There are two types of decomposition, aerobic and anaerobic. Anaerobic's in the absence of oxygen. We're going to want oxygen in there. Okay. Now, probably the most valuable tool you can ever have when it comes to a compost pile is a pitchfork, manure fork they're called sometimes, and there's a reason for this. It goes into your compost pile very easily. You can pick it up and turn it when you need to turn it, okay? You can also occasionally come around, poke holes in there, get some oxygen flowing. You know, that's what you want to see. You can't go the cheap route and go with a shovel because you can't get in there. I mean, you're just going to work way too hard. So invest in a good pitchfork. Okay, so things you want to avoid in your compost pile. You don't want oils, so no cooking oils, cheese, stuff like that's got a lot of oil in it. Plus stuff like cheese would just attract predators. You can put meat in a pile, you can put fish in a pile. That, of course, will eventually break down, but you do run the risk of critters getting in here. If you bury it very deep, that's ideal. I'm just going to avoid it altogether. I'm going to, for like my fish guts, when I go fishing, I'm going to do a fish emulsion, and that'll be a future video. So one of the things they talk about is surface area. You'll hear about surface area when people are talking about compost piles. Basically, if you have something like this, that'll break down over time. But if you can cut it in half, then you've got more surface area, and it gives more opportunities for the bacteria and insects and whatnot to actually break it down. So I had a lot of trees that I'd taken down this year, so I chopped a lot of it up by hand. It'll break down over time. These bigger pieces might take a little longer. Other things you're going to want to avoid putting in your compost pile would be like magazines, glossy paper, tape, things like that. So if you use cardboard, you'll want to remove the tape. I personally try to avoid things with a lot of print on them. You can put it in there, but to me it's just one other thing that I don't want in my compost pile. You want to avoid putting too many acidic foods in here, like orange peels, tomatoes. I mean, you can put them in there, but just be careful about how much you put in there. You don't want the pile to become acidic. It will become ruined over time if that happens. As far as human waste or pet waste, you can, if you want to. Might smell a little bit. That's up to you. Now, one other thing when it comes to compost piles is you can make them like a nice neat bin or whatnot, you know, use pallets, whatever. To me, this is just some space I had in the backyard. I eventually might put some bins in here, but now it's just going to be real practical for me. When it comes time to turn them, this pile is going to get flipped over here. This pile will then get flipped where in between these two, and then this third pile that we're going to eventually build, that'll be able to be turned as well. So, okay, let's start building a compost pile. All right, so this is the spot where I'm going to put my third pile. I've already kind of prepped the area. I had some leftover straw, and I cut down a bunch of the weeds and stuff around here. So this is going to kind of be our base. When you build a compost pile, you want to layer things. You want to do some browns, then you want to do some greens, browns, greens, browns, greens, as you build it up. So let's get started. First thing I'm going to do is add some cardboard down here. Now I've already removed all the tape, so there is no tape on here. There was really no printing on this cardboard, so I'm pretty happy with that. Dump a little bit of straw on top of it as well. Okay, and then we add a good handful of our quail manure and wood chips. All right, so we got that started. Now let's get some greens on there. I had a bunch of trees that I chopped up the branches and whatnot. So this would be a good start for our green material. I've got a bunch of old rotten vegetables, so I'm just going to kind of throw those in there. Got some of our eggshells, so crush those up, throw those on. Some of our kitchen scraps. Okay, and now we'll do another layer. More cardboard. We got some ripped up brown paper bags. Now, one other thing you want to add to help your compost pile get started is just some fresh topsoil. There's bacteria, there's insects in there, all that good stuff is going to help break down all of this. So I actually had pulled a bunch of weeds, there's some grass clippings in this, but we're just going to go ahead and throw a little pitchfork right on top of there. And then get back to building the pile. coffee grounds on there. Eggshells. Give you another shot of soil. Now this pile is in no way means complete. I will continue to add to it over the next several weeks. Ideally what I would like to happen is get all the 3 of these piles broken down enough at the end of the gardening season that I can start putting them back into the soil. And then all the stuff I've grown, the leaves, the vines, everything left over, that'll start my next compost pile. So the final thing I'm going to do is just give this a little bit of soaking. So I got a couple of jugs of rainwater from my rain barrel collection system. Get everything good rinsing. Topped off the last of my coil manure. And that's it. That's how to make a compost pile. So I hope you learned something today. It's definitely a way to be less dependent. Don't have to spend that money on fertilizer. So I'll keep you updated at the end of the season. Maybe we'll do a follow-up video so you can see how it starts to break down. But anyways, focus on being less dependent. Have a great day.